Hi, this is Dina. Welcome to my YouTube channel, Dina's Journey. I just wanted to come on here and do part three of My Mother Was Hiding a Secret from Me and finish up this story. I just did one and two to lay the ground, give you the details. It's not all the details, but I just wanted to finish up. So in my other video, my last video, I was saying that my mother and my father split up when I was 8. They were married, but they broke up. So now I'm 10 years old and my mother meets another man, and she didn't go out and meet him or anything. My cousin from North Carolina brought him to the house with him one night because, they was sitting around playing cards and drinking, social. And he was sitting at the table talking to my mother. So I guess they started liking each other because he had came over there more than one time. So anyway, he started to live with us. I did not like this man. I just knew that he drank. I knew he smoked cigarettes. Um, Besides that, I didn't know anything about him yet, so I couldn't like him. I didn't have time to like him. He was just living with us, started living with us. And but later on, still when I'm 10, my mother told me, she said, Dina, I need to sit down and talk to you about something. And we sat down at the table, and he sat down at the table also. By then, he must have been there some some months because I wasn't 11 years old. I was 10. And my mother said, I need to sit down and tell you something. I need to talk to you about something because I don't want anybody else to tell you. I want to be the one to tell you. So we sat down, and my mother said, she just braced herself and she told me, she said, Dina, I'm not your mother. And your father's not your father. So I'm saying, I started crying and I'm saying, who is my mother? And who is my father? And that's devastating news to hear that your father's gone. He's not your father. Your mother's not your mother. And then she got to explain all this to me. This man, when my mother said this, told me, the man, her boyfriend, he said, he started crying. He was brokenhearted. So I said, who's my mother? And she said the person's name. I won't say the person's name on here for personal reasons. And my mother had a sister, and my aunt had daughters. So she said that my cousin that I was raised with as my cousin was my mother. So all my cousins that I was playing with, the girls, they always came into my house. We played together. I went to their house, had a wonderful time. But one of her daughters was my mother. So then I said, then I, it's the story is very confusing. My mother, my biological mother, when I say biological, you'll know it's the mother I found out about, and then my mother that raised me, I'll say mother. But my biological mother had daughters, and I was calling them my cousins. And then my biological mother had sisters. right? But here's the kicker. My biological mother was molested. She was only 14. She was molested by my my aunt's boyfriend. So that's how she has me. Now, they didn't know I was going to tell this story, but I hid it and 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 hid it. And I said, I'm 55. The only people that knew was a couple of my friends. All this time when I was 55, I never got to share with it. I said, God, I said, somebody can be going through this and they really might be finding out their mother's not their mother, finding out their father's not their father. And they have to go through life wondering. And one thing that a mother shouldn't do is lie to their child. And one thing a mother shouldn't do is lie and say that's the father and that's not the father. I'm talking about when you can tell the truth. My mother had to wait until a certain time because we had a neighbor. She was real nosy. I mean, next door neighbor. And she knew, people in the neighborhood knew that my mother adopted me from the hospital. My grandmother said, get up there and get her because we'll never know where she is. My grandmother was a praying woman. And she said, go get that baby. And my mother couldn't have kids. So my biological mother was molested by a boyfriend. She had sisters, and then remember, she had daughters. So her daughters would be my sisters. Altogether, on my biological mother's side, I have 5 sisters. Okay, I was raised the only child. Anyway, I'm trying not to hesitate. I'm trying to think. So my cousins were my sisters, and so I went over there, and I was happy. I was happy that she told me that I had sisters. I wasn't happy that she wasn't my mother. That's what hurt me the most. I didn't go to my biological mother and say, "Oh, mama." I didn't do that because I love this lady so much. So we was just raised together. We was raised together in the same family. We just came up and we would say, we still would tell people we were cousins, but we started going to church. And people started asking questions because because my biological mother had sisters. So the sisters that she had would really be my cousin. No, they would really be my aunt and my sister. Now that's confusing. I'm trying to explain it, but it's confusing. My biological mother had sisters because my aunt had 3 children by this man. Same man. She had children by him. So they would be my aunt and my sister. And the other set of children that my aunt had would be just my aunts, right? And then my aunt was really my grandmother. And so this is happening a lot in families, and I know that because the aunt or somebody in the family will take that child, for the ones that been molested or raped, and they'll take that child and raise it as their own. But I saw a video where some girl found out on video actually they said it to her on a video, and she was 33 and they exposed it right on some video, and she's looking around and she said, Why y'all do this to me when I'm 33? The later you wait, the worse it is. The worse that it is, because you would hate the person. You would start to have some kind of hardness in your heart towards them. And I'm glad my mother did it when I was kind of pliable, because when I turned 12, I was outside playing with all my friends, and the next door neighbor that was nosy had a granddaughter. The granddaughter was kind of, showed herself that day. And so I was with all my friends, and she came by. She said, "Where's your mother?" And I said, "My mother's in the house." And she said, "No, where's your real mother?" So she exposed it in front of all the kids. And here I am. It's shameful. I can't explain it as a kid to say. And I went up to her. Remember, I didn't fight. I was bullied as a kid. I was bullied. So I went up to her. You know what I did? I took her head. She was sitting against the wall, and I banged it against the wall. I hit, and I said, "Oh, I never did anything like that because I didn't hit people." But only when somebody threatened, like I think I did it. I only fought a few times as a kid, so but that hit deep. That hit deep because she told it was like 10, 15 kids, and she tried to shame me in front of them. And see, but that's why my mother told me when I was 10. Now my father was the father that molested my biological mother. I didn't know who he was. I just heard the name, and he lived in the same city. I never knew who he was. I never seen him, but I always wondered what he looked like because he would be my other sisters, and I had one brother. It, that would be their father, and that would be their father too. So they knew who he was, but I didn't know who he was, and I never wanted to know who he was. It was like I was just set as a kid. I wanted my father back that I knew. I was already broken. I was broken as a kid once my mother told me that. And then when I started getting near 12, I wanted to I got I had a now I had a boyfriend at 12. Ain't I something? Nobody should have a boyfriend at 12. But then I started rebelling. That hurt made me rebel. And I started having a boyfriend. I had my first boyfriend at 12. Mm-mm-mm. 12, 13, 14, I was with this boy. And if my daughters had a boyfriend, they ain't supposed to have no boyfriend. But I know kids these days, if they knew what I knew, they wouldn't do it. My mother was a firm person. She was firm. She was the kind of mother can look at me, and I would say, "Ooh, Ma." I said, "Ma." She said, "Dina, I know you." But anyway, I started rebelling, had a boyfriend, had the nerve to get pregnant. Now I'm going cuckoo. Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. My mother, I didn't have the child. I did not have the child. That's all I'll say. My grandmother was praying for me like, you know, what are you doing? I was always with my grandmother as a child, but when I started to become, and I always went to church, always was in church, but my mother did not go. Actually, my biological mother took me, started taking me to church and stuff when I was 13. And then when I turned 13, I said, I ain't going to church no more. I ain't going. I made that decision. I wasn't going. And that's where I was just with this boy. Mother couldn't tell me nothing. And then how can she tell me something? And she's with this guy that's on drugs. But I love my mother. There's more to that. Because God gets the glory out of this. Nobody gets the glory but God, because he knew the end of a thing. She never took me to church, but she said, Dina, my mother was funny. I mean, she was funny. She said, Dina, I went to church so much when I was a kid. I went enough to go as an adult. But that's not true. But she was in church every day. Every day, she told me. I'm trying to stay in this camera. Yeah. But anyway, I just want to say that there's children out there hurting. They don't have their fathers. The mothers are not being mothers. And if you don't have your father, you got to take care of your children. My mother still did that, even though she had a boyfriend. She still did that. What? Let's put it over here. Oh Lord. Better. Okay, sorry. But anyway, I can't think of anything else to put in this video. I have to put it in the next clip. It's not a continuation, but she adopted me as a baby. She took me from my mother, my biological mother, out in there. Somebody's coming in the house. See you on the next one.